And it is not often that I get a chance to say that. As a matter of fact, I'm about to say something. I've had a 25-year radio career. I've been incredibly blessed to have this radio career. I'm about to say something that I've never said in my radio career. I have a gentleman in studio that you could say at one time he was the most popular entertainer on the face of the earth. His name is Pat Boone. He joins us in studio to talk about what's going on in his world and any number of other things. Mr. Boone, it is an honor to have you in studio with us.
Well, great to be with you. And that time when I was number one in the world was about 15 minutes.
I think it was longer than that.
But in 1957, and people don't remember this, why should they? They're mostly dead. But 1957, there was a worldwide canvassing of who's the most popular male singer. This was in England, the New Musical Express and Billboard Cashbox all over. And I was number one. Elvis was number two in 1957. But that's because I had a 6-month head start on Elvis, had million sellers before we met. First time we met was in Cleveland at a sock hop. Bill Randall, the nation's number one DJ at the time, at WERE in Cleveland, he was having a sock hop, and he invited a kid from Shreveport, Louisiana, to come up, and he wanted to see what he was like because he'd been signed by RCA Victor. He only had one record, a Bill Monroe bluegrass song, Blue Moon of Kentucky, keep on shining.
It's a pretty big one.
But that was bluegrass, and this was just beginning of rock and roll time.
Right.
So Elvis... he got there. I got to the high school, Brooklyn High School, in Cleveland. I don't know why it was called Brooklyn High School, but I guess somebody took a wrong detour. Anyway, I was there waiting to see this kid I'd heard about on a jukebox in Dallas, and I knew this was not rhythm and blues or rock and roll. It was Bill Monroe, and he was on the Shreveport. What was it called?
Louisiana Hayride?
Louisiana Hayride. So I was there already, and 650 kids out in the audience in the high school auditorium. And in walks Elvis with Bill Black and Larry Butler, I think. Anyway, a couple of his musicians. They were going to lip sync. I mean, you didn't play live in a sock hop. You couldn't recreate your own record. So you just lip synced it and sang with it.
Right.
And so I was there for my 3 records. I had 3 million sellers at that point in March of 55. So in comes Elvis and said, "Hi, Elvis, Pat Boone. Nice to meet you." And I said, "Bill Randall says some big things may be ahead for you coming up." "I don't know about that, but I hope so." And he just leaned back against the wall, and the buddies closed in around him. I tell you, he was through talking. And he was shy. And later, a couple of years later, when I told him that, I thought he was scared because of the 650 kids waiting to hear him, not knowing who he was. He said, "Well, I didn't know. I didn't know what to say to you." I said, "Why?" "Well, you had hit records." I said, "I'd only been recording since March, and I'm 6 months older than he was." And he said, "Yeah, but you were on the charts, and I didn't know how to talk to you." I mean, Elvis really was just
unassuming,
socially. Yeah. Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he always was, actually. On stage, different thing. But like Johnny Carson, in social situations where he has to talk to people he doesn't know, he just as soon not be there.
It's either, it occurs to me the number of, you're obviously one of the famous names, one of the most famous names in the entertainment industry, and you've met so many famous individuals. Is it the case that a lot of them are more shy in their private life, or does it just depend on the individual?
Yeah, I think it goes for some of the female performers, maybe more than some of the guys, but because, it's a different world moving to what is largely a male environment.
Right.
But, some of the girls get over it really quickly.
I'm fascinated, Mr. Boone, by your longevity, your energy.
I am too. I really am.
And your willingness, and we'll talk about the new album coming up in just a moment, but your willingness to continue even at 89 years of age, to kind of reinvent yourself and to continue to do new and different things over the life of your career. It's just fascinating.
Well, I'm truly amazed at it myself. I keep saying to myself, are you kidding? You're going to make another record. You're going to make 2 more records. You're going to do a new album. You're writing a new book. Yeah. You broke your hip. You're going to go to Nashville and sing a couple of songs with Mike Huckabee a few days later and walking around on a cane. I mean, yeah, I don't know what drives me really, except the inability that I have when opportunities come my way. Most of all, I've told many, many kids by the thousands that I did not create any of my opportunities. They came to me in one way or another, and a door opened and I walked through it because I couldn't say no. I mean, that's true of the singing I did when I was growing up here in Nashville. I was a kid who lived out on Lone Oak Road who knew some of the pop tunes of the day and could sing them, and had a piano teacher who would accompany me. And so I would be asked by lady Shakespeare clubs or a Civitan meeting, or Junior Chamber of Commerce. Hey, get that Boone kid. He knows some pop songs and he's got a woman, and we don't have to pay him.
I mean, is it true? I think I read in advance of the interview that you first sang at Centennial Park.
Yeah.
That was the first time that you were performing?
Well, it was the biggest live performance ever. It was their Centennial summertime in the park, and they honored somebody who sang in the city. It could be already somebody famous,
right?
Or it could be a newcomer. My wife, Shirley, Red Foley's daughter, was also a discovery of the week in the Centennial Parks after I was, and I did the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. Just won an East Nashville High Talent Contest. The first prize was a trip to New York and an audition with Ted Mack. No guarantee that you get on the show. You got a guarantee of auditioning in New York. So when I got on the show, I felt like, well, I've justified the people of Nashville sending me here. So I did not expect to win on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And I sang a song that was a big hit, pop gospel song called I Believe, Frankie Lane. I believe for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. So I sang that on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, and to my astonishment, I didn't know I had won till Thursday. It was on a Saturday, and it was cards and letters, voting. And I left New York just so relieved that I had actually sung on the show and didn't let my hometown of Nashville down. And I went out, it was summertime, and I went out to a place called Beardstown, where I was leading singing in gospel meetings, a cappella, no instrumental music, and nighttime meetings. And it was so far out in the country that where I was having dinner with these people, they didn't have a phone. In fact, most people around there didn't. There was a switchboard in the town of Beardstown, and they had to find me from New York, track me down and through that switchboard, because it didn't occur to me I was going to win or go back, as the winner each week would return for 3 weeks.
Are they just ringing houses saying, is Pat over there?
Yeah, really. I don't know how they did it, because I was eating lunch with the farm family, and a truck comes up in the yard, scattering pigs and chickens and knocking on the screen door. Is there a guy named Boone in there? Yeah, he's eating us out of house and home in here. And they said, well, we got to get him over to the switchboard over here in Beardstown, because some guy named Schoonmaker is trying to get him on the phone from New York. And this was the first inkling I had that maybe I had won the contest that week. And so I had to come here in the Tennessee and took a picture of me packing to go back to New York. And I won the second week and the third week in a row, and sang a couple other songs. And then that qualified me. That was as far as you could go, in one strip. But the idea was, if they got enough, eventually 3-time winners, they would pit all of us against each other, and there'd be a winner of the 3-time winners, which I did enter. But that's another story. I mean, I entered, and they told me I was winning. But by then I'd already married. I was at North Texas State expecting my first child, and at age 20. And so I went on that show, and they told me I was winning. But while I was waiting in New York, I couldn't afford to go back to Texas and come back again. So I was in a seedy little hotel off Times Square. And so I went over and auditioned for Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scout show. Because he had, on a Monday night, professionals come on his show and have 3, and one would win and be on his morning show for the next few days. I mean, I don't know how many people still remember Arthur Godfrey. And,
I got you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
How are you, ladies? and he'd do commercials and make fun of the sponsors, really, and they loved it. But so I went over and auditioned at CBS, and they said, "Can you come back in 3 weeks?" I said, "No, I'm expecting my first baby with my wife." "Oh, we'll put you on tonight." So they put me on that night, and I won on Arthur Godfrey's show. And all I got for it was 3 days on the morning show that week.
At this point, did you know this is what you wanted to do? Did you know that you wanted to be an entertainer at that point?
No, I mean, I dreamed of it. I had fantasies about it. I mean, singing pop songs and seeing how people seemed to like what I was doing. In high school, I was known as Blue Moon Boone, because in any, school gathering and somebody wanted to sing, I could sing, "Blue Moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own."
I bet any of the other singers that wanted to sing and they hear you do that and they're like, "Well, here goes Blue Moon Boone."
Yeah,
and he's ruining it for everybody else.
But the girls liked it and the guys didn't mind.
So
and so, I mean, I just sang because I liked it and they would ask me to. Mm-hmm. But no, I'd married Shirley Foley, Red Foley's daughter. And now I had to be serious about what am I going to do. I promised him I would take care of his girl. And
did he help you? I mean, was he a mentor to you, or?
Well, not intentionally. I mean, because I didn't know I was going to follow in his footsteps in any way. He was country. I wasn't really into country that much then, until I met Shirley Foley, and then I got to be a very avid country fan, and would
when
watch.
You're the son-in-law of Red Foley, you better learn.
Yeah, I'd go to in the Opry on Saturday nights, in the original place,
right?
Ryman,
right?
And would watch the folks out there with the paper bags with bottles in them, and lunches and babies, and I watched that whole scene, and it was very impressive to me. But I also listened to Red Foley and how he sang, and how the things that impressed me always, that he seemed to mean every word that he was singing, and people got that from him, and he was just the royalty of country. All the other country performers consider him the best of the singers, of the actual singers' voices and so on. He studied opera, but instead of going to opera, he went to Opry.
I've got to warn my producer for a second. Belle, we're not taking a 20 break. We're going straight to the bottom of the hour. I'm just warning you because I can't
you can't
stop
shut
talking.
me up.
Oh, okay. Well, no. And I just got told that I can hold on to him till 1 o'clock. Is that okay?
Tomorrow.
I mean, I can, let me tell you, I need to note this because you came in and you just broke your femur?
Yeah.
Holy
my hip,
shnikes.
Really. We call it my hip, but
right?
It's a femur bone. And
how you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah, I tell you, since the third day of being in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, I mean, and it was screamingly hard then. But since then, I haven't had what I call pain. I get discouragement from my hip. I don't call it
discouragement.
Yeah,
let's not do that.
I get fatigue. Yeah, like grumpiness from my hip and my groin, and I am on a cane. But I got to the cane quickly from a walker, and I'm doing okay. And I'm going to be standing on Huckabee's show 2 nights from now, and singing my song "Grits" from this album. And the song that came to me in a dream. I want to tell you about that. But and then I'm going to do Closer Walk with Thee, one of Red Foley's classics from this same album. And Mike Huckabee and his people didn't want me to come on if I was going to come on in a walker or a wheelchair. They didn't want to, didn't think that was appropriate. And I said, I'm not going to have to do that. I'll walk on. I mean, I was so confident I could do it. And I'll stand there. And I even did a video several days ago of me standing in my den next to the hospital bed. But I'm singing grits, bestest food there is, country caviar, Tennessee foie gras, hey, grits, bestest food there is. Keep your fancy food, give me my grits. As I say, that song came to me in a dream. I dreamed that.
You put that on the new album with, you got the Gatlin Brothers on there with you?
Gatlin Brothers, Laurie Morgan.
Ray Stevens on there with you?
Ray Stevens. What the lady?
Deborah Allen.
Deborah Allen. And also Roger Miller's son, who gave me the greatest compliment. He says, I can hear my dad writing that song.
Oh, yeah. You can hear a lot of Roger Miller in that song.
Yeah. Bestest food there is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So you keep going, and you remind me of something my grandfather said, prior to his pass. He said that the thing that will kill you more quicker than anything is your easy chair.
Yeah.
He would point, I never forget, I was in his living room and he was telling a mutual friend of ours, he said, the thing that gets people my age more than anything, and he pointed to is the recliner. And he said, that right there. He said, if you don't get up and move every day, and it feels like you take up that same philosophy.
Yeah. And I've seen it taking hold of me because, since my wife Shirley went to heaven and I've been on my own, I'm batching it really I've got 3 different housekeepers who take turns taking care of me, but I find myself watching too much TV, and I do some reading, and I try to answer all my mail, but I find myself leading a more sedentary life, and I realize I'm going to run out of gas much quicker. So I had just gotten back into the gym working out. I still play tennis, singles tennis, up till now with a younger guy. He's only 83. And
wait, hold on. So I think I read this up until the age of 85. Were you not playing competitive basketball?
I was playing in 3 different national senior games.
You played in the Senior Olympics, didn't you?
Senior Olympics, 3 seasons in a row. I mean, they were separated every other year. First was in Cleveland, and I was in the 70-75 bracket. Then the next was Kentucky 75 to 80 bracket, and then in Albuquerque in the 80 to 85 bracket. 3-on-3 referees, 20-minute halves, and full out basketball, and loving it and playing it and scoring. But what we found out was all these teams, many of them anyway, had ex pro players and 6'8" black guys. And we were never going to get a rebound.
That's it's incredible that you're that active. I mean, and I'm fascinated. You're more fit than I am. I'm 50 years old, Mr. Boone. You're more fit than me. You teach me a couple of things about it. Is it, you mentioned your wife, Shirley, who passed several years ago, and as you mentioned, on to heaven. I also read a story, and I was fascinated by it. I mean, you were obviously so dedicated to your beautiful wife.
Yeah.
When you were in, I think I have this story right, you were in a film, and you were asked to kiss the leading lady, and did tell the story.
I will. I've had to tell it too many times because it was a detriment on my career, but because I had a 7-year movie deal at 20th Century Fox out of the blue. The first movie was a movie called Bernadine, which had been a Broadway show, a musical. And it was with Gary Crosby and Tommy Sands and other playing kids. And we have our own after school, not playhouse, but clubhouse back of a drugstore somewhere. And there was a romance element. Terry Moore was a pinup queen, and we worshipped her picture. She was Bernadine, but there was no actual girl-boy interaction in that movie. It was just a teenage film. And the movie did great, so I went right from that into April Love, which was written no, it wasn't a Broadway show. In fact, the title song was written for me by a couple of Academy Award winners, Sammy Fain and Paul Francis Webster. And they sat me down. I'm just 21 years old. And they played me a melody and a song, April Love is for the very young. And I said, guys, I hate to say this, but what's happening now is what we call rock and roll. And this is a real pretty song, but can we do anything to give this a little more excitement? And they said, well, like what? I said, well, I'm just thinking maybe an intro like bop, 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 like something important's about to happen. They said, well, we can do that. So they put that on pop, 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 April Love. Connie Stevens, of course, took it whole cloth.
Right.
And me and pop, 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 where the boys are. And they used that intro, but so I was trying to contribute to trying to make to be commercial, and I'd signed a 7-year deal. So now we get to April of the movie with Shirley Jones, absolutely beautiful woman, and she'd done I think a couple of Broadway plays, and they wanted some kind of sex in it somehow, a teenage romance. But so now we get to this end of a scene in a state fair, a carousel, a merry-go-round, and we're getting closer and closer as we get to the bottom, and the song ends. The director says, now lean in and kiss Shirley. And I said, on the mouth? He said, yes, where else? And I said, but that's not in the script, Henry. He said, well, who cares? You got to kiss the leading lady. I said, look, I know this seems funny and I know it's naive, but I haven't talked to my own wife, Shirley, about doing kissing scenes in movies. And I just, can we do this later in the film? So, because I want to be able to at least tell Shirley Boone that I'm going to spend half an afternoon kissing our friend Shirley Jones in a movie scene. And he says, well, this is the perfect place, but okay. Well, that hit the Hollywood trade papers, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all these magazines. Pat Boone refuses to kiss leading lady, and they assume for religious reasons, which it was not. I just wanted to stay married.
You just out of respect to your wife. Well, you wanted to stay married.
Stay married. And the head of the studio, Buddy Adler, brought me in. He said, what is this? He was fuming. You've said that you're not going to kiss the leading lady. You're under a 7-year deal here making movies. You got to kiss the leading lady. I said, I'm all for it, Mr. Adler. In fact, I've already talked to my wife, Shirley. She says, I'm way ahead of you. I know there's going to be some kissing. Just promise me one thing. I said, anything. She said, you won't enjoy it. I said, okay, I won't enjoy it. And I came back and I told Buddy Adler, I'm ready to go. I'm all puckered up. Look. And and he said, good, I've already told the press that after talking to the director of the film, you are going to kiss the leading lady. I said, wait a minute. And now it looks like I made a religious stand, which it wasn't, but I've got to take a little time to think about this because it's going to look like I gave up my scruples just because the director taught me.
Well, they're making something that wasn't really there, right?
I mean, it was so crazy. But so I didn't kiss Shirley Jones in the movie because I was getting mail pouring in to the studio. Stick to your guns, boy. There's finally somebody with morals in the movie business. And they were crediting me with something that I hadn't really done. I just wanted to, find out if it was okay with my wife, Shirley, that if I kissed Shirley Jones for a while, once or twice in the movie. And I already got her permission. Later, 50 years later, we did the kiss because we used to kid each other, and both Marty Ingalls, her husband, the comedian, and my wife Shirley said, well, you can kiss one time. You can have one kiss. So we said, okay, we'll do that one of these days. Well, they had just refurbished the movie April Love, the film, actual films, and it was beautiful. And they showed it at a place called Cinematheque. And Shirley was there, and Marty Ingalls, not my wife Shirley, but Shirley Jones. But she had already given me permission. So they were filming this afterwards in the talk after the film. And I said to Shirley Jones, now look, I'm going to direct this. It's not going to be Fatal Attraction. I'm not going to slam you against a wall or something. This is going to be just a tender little teenage kiss. And I'm directing, so we're in director chairs. We're leaning closer and closer. As I get closer to kiss her, she turns her cheek to me. I said, "Oh, no, wait a minute. No. This is a kiss. This is a on-the-mouth kiss." But it is teenage now, remember, so it just was. And I backed away, and that was it. Now, it's on film somewhere. The Cinematheque, we got to remember this, Dana. To get this film, we ought to be able to show this. It took 50 years.
But you finally got your kiss.
And I could tell Shirley Boone I didn't enjoy it.
Hold your thought there, Mr. Boone. Pat Boone is in studio with us. We have to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to talk about this incredible album that he brought in with him, Country Jubilee. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I think this picture was taken a few years ago. I want to believe
it was in a movie called Main Attraction.
Well, we will talk about Country Jubilee coming up in just a moment. It's 12:30. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 12:36. What a very special hour we're in the midst of. Matt Murphy and the Matt Murphy Show, taking a step back from politics. We are covering the news of the day. Don't fear that. Congressman Tim Burchett's coming up at 1:35 this afternoon. He'll tell us all about the altercation that he had with Congressman Kevin McCarthy. And then in the 2 o'clock hour, Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton will be here. Right now, we are honored to be joined by Pat Boone in studio. He's got a brand new album out. That is from a previous foray into a different genre of music that we just listened to, which kind of leads me right to that. I remember when the metal album came out.
Yeah.
And there were some people that thought that you were, making fun or you were joking around.
Mm-hmm.
There were others that felt and I get the opportunity to ask you this question now was this kind of in response, you had this squeaky clean image.
Yeah.
Were you responding in any way to that? I mean, did that?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Yeah. I knew I was more than most people thought. I mean, I thought that the image of me was as some of the comedians, goody two shoes and milk drinker and square. Right. I wrote a song which I'm very proud of. Are there any more squares out there? It was like Merle Haggard's Okie from Muskogee, that kind of thing.
Right.
But so now I was with my musicians. They'd been with me for years, still are, after 30, 40 years, the same musicians. And we were in London waiting to change planes, and we were doing my concerts and just doing all the gold record songs. And they said, "Pat, we love doing all this, and the audience loves it, but why don't we go in the studio and do an album together?" And I said, "Look, I've been thinking about it for years, but what can I do? I haven't done 10 times. I've already done gospel, I've done patriotic, I've done country, I've done rhythm blues, rock and roll, and even 2 a cappella albums where I don't have any instrumental music. But so what could I do? It'd just be another album." They said, "Well, we never did any heavy metal." And I said, I sure haven't, because I had no regard for it. But they said, "But there's some good songs there underneath all that noise that we could do some other way." I said, "What other way?" "Big band swing." "Oh, now we're talking. Big band swing. And yeah, big band jazz." So well, show me some songs. Well, that's when first time I ever got to hear any of the songs, and then and I had a guy from one of the rock labels helping me pick out songs like Guns N' Roses' Paradise City, a good song. Even Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train I found to be great social commentary about kids.
Is it true that you lived next to Ozzy Osbourne?
Right next to him for 3 years. I had already done his song before I met him, and he moves in next door. And here he comes. I'll go out to get the mail. And here comes Ozzy Osbourne shuffling along on the sidewalk. There's an Escalade, and he doesn't walk; he shuffles. And I say, "Hi, Ozzy. I'm Pat Boone." "Oh, nice to meet you." He says,
"Pretty good, Ozzy, Pat."
He said, "Well, I lived next to him for 3 years."
Sure.
And he says, "I got to go to an AA meeting," but he says, "When I get home," he says, "we'll get together and have some tea, okay?" And I said, "Sure." So we did, and we became buddies there, Sharon and the kids, and he lived over the hedge from us, and it was noisy over there, and there were dogs, and he.
It's so iconic. It's just.
And next door to him on the other side, in escrow, was Meatloaf. He was. It was going to be Meatloaf, Ozzy Osbourne, and Pat Boone in consecutive houses, and we were already talking about the block parties we were going to have.
Well, yeah, and you went all in and
treating the songs as music.
That's right. And you kind of went all in from an image standpoint. I mean, you famously wore the black leather.
Yeah.
And is it true that there was a little bit of pushback?
Oh, yeah.
For the black leather?
Oh, yeah. The Christian networks, two of them, publicly announced I was off the air on Christian networks because I did it so well. Bill Ballou, who did Elvis's costumes, did mine, which was just a vest, sleeves, no sleeves, down to the navel. I did a bunch of push-ups before, but I was in good shape anyway. And went on with tattoos. I tell people I still have the tattoos. They're in a drawer upstairs. But I was really made up like a heavy metal apparition. Sure. And it was Dick Clark's idea. It was his show. He wanted Alice Cooper and me to swap images because my album coming out the next day, he felt was going to be a hit because of the song choices and the way I was doing them and the interest there was going to be. So he had Alice agree to come out in a V-neck sweater, wearing white buck shoes, carrying a glass of milk, and a golf cap because he is an excellent golfer. And then I was Mr. Heavy Metal coming out through a fog. When he introduced me, first of all, he backed out of it in the dressing room before we went on. He said, I can't do this. I can't walk out there carrying a glass of milk, white shoes. I just am not going to do it. So I was still in my tux. He didn't know I was going to go ahead and do it. So I was taking pleasure in shocking the king of shock rock when he introduced me. We had some stuff on the teleprompter we were going to have to read, but he says, I know the history of rock and roll. I want to introduce you to the future of heavy metal, Mr. Pat Boone. Now, there was a fog. I walk out through the fog, and I'm coming out, with a John Wayne type walk, and I'm playing the part. And there's such noise in the audience, cacophony. And I learned later it was all the younger ones saying, who is that? And the older ones said, well, they said it's Pat Boone, but it can't be. Well, who's Pat Boone? And so it was so noisy that I couldn't talk yet. So I walk out to the edge of the stage, and like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver, I'd stand, hey, you got a problem? You want a piece of me? I'm just trying to do this with attitude, and I didn't even have a mic. And I walked back to Alice Cooper, who was standing there with his mouth hanging open, and I said, Alice, I've recorded your song, No More Mr. Nice Guy, in my album. And he acted surprised, like, what? And then he said, then he had to read the teleprompter. Does this mean I have to sing Love Letters in the Sand? And I had the sound man ready. When he asked me that, I said, turn up any effect you have. And I leaned on, that would be nice. and Cooper backed away. He didn't know this was going to happen. But then we open the envelope and we give the award for heavy metal and hard rock to Metallica. And I'd done their song, Enter Sandman, and they come up on the stage bowing, saying I'm their new lead singer. Well, the way it came off on TV, people not realizing, they thought I've simply dropped my early career and I'm going to go full bore into heavy metal. And so the Christian channels publicly announced that they were canceling my weekly show called Gospel Gold, and it took it off the air. And so, but
everything ended well.
A couple
right?
months later,
right.
We got it all settled, and it was the first time they ever heard Enter Sandman or Enter Sandman or the Cooper song. No More Mr. Nice Guy on Christian television. And of course, the irony is that Alice Cooper, his name is Vincent Fournier. He's the son of a preacher and is now a really turned on Christian guy. And he was already, but he just couldn't scrap his normal image. And so it took him by surprise like everybody else.
You mentioned your faith. It occurs to me that you led, am I right? I mean, for a long time, you led a Bible study, probably the most famous Bible study, or a Bible study with more famous individuals involved in the Bible study in the history of Bible studies.
Well, I hadn't thought about it being, that unusual, but come to think of it, yeah, we did for off and on for a number of months, a year or two, when I could be home. My wife didn't want to, host it unless I was there, but we invited entertainers of all denominations, all stripes, most of them not church-going people at all, and not even interested in going to a church, but they would come to our home and hear a Bible teacher just to talk about life in practical terms and scriptural terms for whatever good. And so we had Doris Day, Glenn Ford, Zsa Zsa Gabor. We had Mickey Cohen, the gambler, crook. And all these people come, and anybody wanted to come and there'd be no publicity.
Sure.
And no pictures taken. Nobody would know that Jonathan Winters came. And so we had some really good meetings, and we even had 2 or 3 baptisms in the swimming pool as a result of some of those things. So
that's very cool.
But I don't know if there ever was anything like that.
I don't think so. Is there anyone in your illustrious career and in your life is there anyone that you've not met that you've wanted to meet? I mean, you're the pinnacle for a lot of people. I mean, and this is just an incredible pinnacle of my career, just to get to sit down and talk to you and just for you to share old stories.
Well, I want to tell you about the 2 times I met the Queen of England in the Royal Command performance. So I've met every president since Eisenhower and Truman.
By the way, everybody, I think this is a no. There's not anybody that Pat wanted to meet.
Well, you mentioned, but Michael Bublé, I'd like to meet him because I'm such a fan of his.
Do you think? I'm sorry to interrupt your train of thought, but it occurs to me. Is he the type of guy that you feel like is doing today the type of stuff that you used to do back in the day?
I do.
Yeah.
He's a married guy. He talks about his kids. He's very popular. He's very cool, very hip, and I think he is certainly one. Glenn Campbell became one, but not in the beginning. He was one of those who.
Was he kind of rowdy in the beginning?
Midlife. Well, you remember Tanya Tucker. You may remember some of that.
I do.
He became a really serious Christian, like Alice Cooper. Many of them, and some, maybe 2 or 3, might give me some credit for helping them shift in their thinking about some of these things, because some people had a negative attitude toward religion. It would be a terrible crimp in their styles and their careers.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
Isn't it sad to say that they feel that way? I mean, do you ever think about or reflect on, and where music is going, where culture is going?
Oh, yeah, I tell you, we're so swept along by whatever's popular now. And boy, we're seeing how deeply bad that can be. I mean, how could we have a Nazi Germany in our streets right now?
Amen.
And it's just, and even educators in colleges, furthering it and promoting it. Mm-hmm. But more than that, it is the dismissal of Scripture or church or Christianity like that. What's that got to do with life now, people think? And they don't realize it could have a whale of a lot to do.
Amen. Let's, in the few minutes we have left, I'd be remiss if we didn't start talking about.
Real quickly, I got a question. Pat, have you ever met Dolly Parton?
Oh, yeah. I've got a picture.
Numerous times?
No, not numerous times, but on a plane, I've got a picture sitting in her lap. On the plane.
I think you're making him very jealous right now.
And there wasn't much room, that's the point, in her lap.
Tea time?
Yeah.
Bell, he's picking on me because I'm on record as saying that Dolly Parton is the finest person walking the face of the earth.
Well, she's a wonderful woman, no question. Yeah.
And I'm beginning to think that you're the finest guy walking the face of the earth, Pat. Country Jubilee, double album?
Yes.
A lot of songs on here. Any favorites of yours that come to mind?
They are all favorites. The reason they're in there, and I could do another whole album like it. Great songs that are still also favorites. But these are songs I was doing in my albums mostly because I loved them. And, when I do any of Hank Williams songs, Kalijah, I haven't heard anybody do Kalijah in 30 years. But then so many of these great songs, Alabama, Cowboy Copas, and then, of course, Red Foley songs, and just on and on and on. I love the way they do them. George Jones and Eddie Arnold, Make the World Go Away. And I get
Is it Texas Woman?
Texas Woman. That was a hit for me, but it was a hit first by the guy that wrote it, Chase Webster. Chase Webster, I think, wrote it and had a hit. And Randy Wood of Dot Records called me one afternoon. Now, this is a great story. He calls me one afternoon and says, "I want you to get down to record recorders," is the name of the studio. And we got to do a country song I think it's going to be a pop hit. I said, "What is it?" "Well, come on down, I'll tell you about it." Moody River. So I get down there, and it's a sad song about a girl jumping in a river because she's so full of guilt she can't live with herself anymore. Mm-hmm. And the guy comes to the river, and there's her glove and a note. I mean, it's a really sad song. Moody River, more deadly than the vainest knife. What does that mean, vainest knife? Well, I don't know. I never asked Chase Webster what he meant by vainest knife. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I just sang it the way he wrote it. But Randy Wood had me put it in a higher key. So Moody River, more deadly than the vainest knife. Moody River, your muddy water, take my baby's life. And at a higher key than I might have sung it, because he wanted me to sound, sad and not just a ballad. And so we did it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we had it, thought we had it great. And I went to a neighbor's house to pick up my wife, Shirley, who was visiting with some friends. Randy Wood said, "I'm going to take a hot dub of this over to KFWB and see what they think of it." Hot dub is a record made from the tape.
Sure.
Just right off the record as you've just done it. It hasn't been EQ'd or anything. And so I went to pick up my wife, and we're standing till I said, "Just recorded this sad song, but we think it may be a hit." And we're getting ready to leave, and I hear the radio was on down low, and I ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the intro. I said, "Wait a minute." I turn it up just in time to hear the program director. And now, for the first time anywhere, our new pick hit of the week, Pat Boone's Moody River. I'm not home from the studio from recording it, and it's pick hit of the week on KFWB, and went from there right up the charts. But that was when records was so fun.
I'll tell you this. When I was 15 years old, my first radio job was at WTWA, your favorite easy listening hits from the 40s to the 80s. Yeah. And Moody River was big in rotation at WTWA, the Heart of Thompson.
And the funniest thing about that is, it has a happy kind of a sound intro. When I was singing in Japan and other countries, and the Japanese, they close their eyes and they listen and they hear this happy refrain. And they're just clapping their hands, and I'm laughing inwardly, thinking they don't understand. I'm talking about a woman jumping in a river and drowning, and they're clapping their hands. It seems such a happy song.
I have to admit, when I was listening when I was 15 years old, I thought it was a Moody River. I didn't even think about it either. Well, the album is Country Jubilee. Go and support Pat. You'll be on with Huckabee this weekend?
Yes, could I read just 3 or 4 titles, just so
absolutely
people will know that this is truly
you can do anything you want.
A compendium of people's favorite country songs. Tennessee Saturday Night, Wolverton Mountain, Paper Roses, Kalijah, Tennessee Waltz, Colorado Country
Tennessee
Morning,
Waltz,
Chattanooga Shoeshine Boy, have you ever passed the corner of 4th and Grand? I do that. And then You and I with Crystal Gale, Alabama, Just a Closer Walk with Thee.
Oh, a duet with Crystal Gale.
Crystal
That's
Gale,
nice.
and
That's
she
nice.
does it so great. Take These Chains from My Heart, Oklahoma Sunshine. Steal Away, Red Foley's great song. Last Date, Floyd Kramer. I wrote the lyrics. Dun, dun, da, 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 dee, da, dum. And you're tearing me apart. I wrote those words.
Nice.
And then Cold, Cold Heart. Cowboys and Daddies, I love that song. Grits, of course. Old Shep, I Feel Like Crying. Don't Let the Stars Get in Your Eyes. Gone, Furlin Husky, I think. Peace in the Valley. But this is a compendium of people's favorite million-selling country hits, all sung by one artist.
And I'm just showing everybody on the TV side of things. There's Pat in that. You've still got that hat.
I got my 10-gallon.
You got your cowboy hat.
With Pat on the front and Boone on the side.
Well, we'll be watching as you appear on Huckabee. Thank you so much for the hour. It has been honor of a lifetime. You are fabulous, and I just so appreciate you spending time with us today.
Thank you for letting me blab like this.
Well, it's been really good.
Because I relive portions of my life when we do this.
Well, I'm happy you did, and the door's always open. Come back anytime.